Good morning, good evening, good night, good whatever time it is, wherever you may be. You clicked on this video because you saw Iceberg. Now it's 2024, and if you still don't know what an iceberg is, you gotta get it together, man. There's no way around it. You gotta get a grip. So, how does an iceberg work? We all know at this point, but stuff everyone knows goes at the top, stuff nobody knows goes at the bottom, blah 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 blah. You wanted to watch a guy yap for 40 minutes, you're gonna get exactly what you signed up for. So sit back, relax, and buckle your fuckles, get cozy, all of that other stuff that I say before the start of every video. Because today, we're getting into the ends of the world iceberg. Have you ever thought about how the world's gonna end? Because it's gonna do that eventually.
Supervolcano. Now, I can see some people thinking, light work, no reaction, because this is just some hot rock, so all you have to do is get away from the hot rock and you're good, right? Wrong. How will a supervolcano end the world? Easy peasy, baby. A supervolcano will cause global cooling. Imagine if, for the Cormac McCarthy fans out here, The Road, but instead of radiation poisoning, we have everything choking on ash and silica getting everywhere, causing huge problems in animal growth. That is what a supervolcano would do. It would basically be no crops for a while, plus animals start dying off, plus ratio, plus no bitches because you will probably freeze to death. Pandemic. Now, the sweet little ledger we have up here says that anything that's yellow is human caused. So, a man-made pandemic. How would this end the world? Because man makes some fucked up shit. Alright, humanity just needs to slow down and stop sometimes. Some of the viruses that humanity has engineered could probably be pretty disastrous if they ever got out. Luckily, they haven't got out. Yet. Sun death. Alright, this one is pretty vague, but there's a few different ways we could interpret this. The first interpretation is that as the sun is aging, problems are going to happen because the sun is a Class G yellow star. That means as it ages, it will expand into a red giant. And it's not called a red giant for nothing. It's called a red giant because it gets really big. And when it becomes a red giant, it's going to engulf the Earth, and Mars will basically be what Mercury is now. That's the first way of interpreting this. The second way of interpreting this is that the sun suddenly goes supernova. If the sun blows up, that's a huge problem because that's a shit ton of energy just floating around in space, and life on Earth is probably going to die from gamma radiation. The third way of interpreting it is that the sun just extinguishes because without any sun providing, energy for things like photosynthesis, the global food chains cannot support themselves, and so we all die. Global anarchy. I don't really think this would end the world, per se, but global anarchy would just be everyone everywhere deciding that government rules and other things are bullshit and not doing it. The problem with anarchy is that it is human nature to categorize things and make rules, so there is no true anarchic state because that second word that I just used there. We still classify things, we still make rules, we still follow routines, we still have habits because that is just what people do, which means that even if we all decided that government was cringe, we would probably just make another one pretty soon because government is cringe, but unfortunately we all like agreeing on things, which means we need some guys to mediate the whole agreeing on things bit, which leads us to government 2, electric boogaloo. World War III. World War III has been defined as probably the end of humanity. There's a very famous quote out there that says, "I do not know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." This is because as humanity perfects its craft that it was seemingly made for, war, because people just love killing each other out there, we start to fuck around with things that maybe we shouldn't fuck around. Everyone knows the age-old adage, fuck around, find out. So right now, a way that the world could end if World War III was to start is we just decide that, hey, this ground combat thing is annoying. What if I hit you with some nuclear bombs? That would inevitably end the world, because as soon as one person starts throwing nukes around, everybody's throwing nukes around. Another way that World War III could end the world? I don't fucking know. Maybe someone invents like the jizz laser that just steals everyone's semen? Basically, humans make horrifying shit, and that shit could probably kill us. My fucking lamp! Deep impact event. That's what it was called when I went to your parents' house last night and tagged them both. All seriousness being taken into consideration here, a deep impact event, just going off of what I think it is, because there doesn't really seem to be any sort of like scientific wording behind this, is when an asteroid that's really, really big hits us. Why is this a problem? Well, you know how like a super volcano causes issues because the world gets cold? That's what a moderate-sized asteroid does. What a major-sized asteroid does is melts the fucking Earth around it. So imagine, if you will, just one side of the planet suddenly being uninhabitable and the other side of the planet being almost that, like slightly better. Like one could argue that one side of the planet had it better because they died immediately. That is a deep impact event. Global warming. I really hope that there is no one in the comments or watching this video that's like, global warming's a hoax, still in 2023. If that is, that's your response to this being a major threat, maybe stick some iron in your mouth. So, what is global warming? If you don't know at this point, you probably live under a rock, or you're 5, in which case, hey kid, turn the cartoons back on, you probably shouldn't be watching this. Global warming is where humanity keeps causing the planet to get warmer and warmer and warmer. And what does this cause? This causes ice melt, and it also causes change in the ocean temperatures. Changes in the ocean's temperatures affect the ocean's biomes. Affecting the ocean's biomes affect the ocean's food chains, which affect the shoreline's food chains, which affect everything's food chains, as well as the weather itself, which affects everything's food chains. So, if global warming gets out of hand and the ocean spirals out of control, becoming dead, then basically everywhere becomes dead because the ocean is responsible for a lot of our oxygen. Small sea life is also responsible for some of our weather patterns, and without it, weather gets out of whack. Global warming is a big problem, not necessarily because it does anything that destroys the world, but because it does a bunch of things that destroy humanity, primarily collapsing food chains. Because with no existing food chains that are sustainable, there's no way for everything around us to survive. And you might think, oh, but we have farming. The problem is that the food chains also affect the weather, and without consistent weather, no, we don't have farming. Nuclear warfare. Believe it or not, sea of irradiated cobalt across the neck of Manchuria is not viable for the survival of humanity. Nuclear warfare isn't viable for the survival of humanity in the slightest, because there's this little problem called people nuke back. Alright, so if just one guy had nuclear bombs, it'd be chill. It'd be fine. We saw it in 1945. Was that, like, by any definitions, chill or fine? No, it was pretty wildly fucked up. But America dropped those nukes and everyone was like, wow, holy shit, that was the power of God dropped on some Japanese civilians. That's fucking horrible. And America went, what the fuck are you gonna do, bitch boy? You don't have nuclear bombs. And then there was that whole period of history called the Cold War, where some people went, actually, step the fuck up, brah. I do have nuclear bombs. And ever since then, dropping nukes in combat has been a terrible idea. Because as soon as one guy starts throwing around nukes, as I said earlier, every person starts throwing around nukes. And there's enough nukes in existence to cause a lot of radioactive fallout across a lot of the world. Now, of course, a few nuclear bombs is not going to do anything on a global scale, because a lot of nuclear bombs have already been detonated for testing. However, every nuclear bomb, full nuclear arsenals detonated across the world, that's going to be a problem that we're not going to be able to bounce back from. Once again, Cormac McCarthy enjoyers, cite the road. We're on to the second level of the iceberg. Now, some people might think, oh, it's the second level of the iceberg. Why do you need to announce it? So that I know where I am in editing and I don't lose my mind. However, we get this bag. So, thanks for still being here. It's like 10 minutes into the video. We've got however many minutes left in the video now. So I hope you're enjoying yourself. Sorry for the brief interruption. Level 2 time. Errant black hole. Alright, so an errant black hole is just a black hole that decided that it really didn't fucking like you one day. Why would a black hole end the world? Well, if you know what a black hole is, you don't need to ask this question. Black holes are pretty horrifying because light can't escape them, which means nothing can escape them, which means that if one just decided that it was going to pull up, it's Jover. You're finished. Super solar flare. Alright, so super solar flare, unlike the last entry, is one that is actually relatively survivable depending on where you are, but basically solar flares release a lot of radiation, specific kinds of radiation, which can and will decimate the electronic infrastructure of the world, which means that if you need electronics to live, it's over. Everyone on life support, everyone with a pacemaker, dead, done. Any car from like before the 80s, dead, done. Your phone, done. Your Wi-Fi, done. Stoves, done. Most water sources, done. Basically everything that powers society as we have it to this day, it's gone. No more electricity. The world would obviously spiral into chaos pretty quickly because the only people who would have any kind of electricity would be the government, and it'd be a while before things got back to normal after that. Luckily, the magnetic field that Earth generates, thanks to having a liquid core, does protect us from most solar flares, which in turn protects most of our infrastructure. But if a solar flare ever overpowers our magnetic field and hits the ground, it's not going to be good. A similar thing did happen in the 1800s, where a large solar flare got past the magnetic field, but again, this was the 1800s, so there wasn't that much electrical infrastructure. Had there been a lot of it, though, there would have been a serious problem. All that really happened for them when that event occurred was that, you couldn't send telegrams as fast until they repaired the lines. Nowadays, though, if something like that happened, it's over for most people. Megafauna. I don't think this ends the world. I'm not even gonna lie. What is megafauna? Big fucking animal. Like Godzilla? Well, Godzilla's more of a mythical beast. Okay, so think like elephants, dinosaurs. Those are all megafauna. I don't really see how that's gonna end the world. See, humanity has this horrifying thing called bullet. If a bullet fails, we have missile. And if missile fails, we have bigger missile. This could cause foreseeable problems for people where megafauna just pulled up, if they pulled up, but I don't really think this ends the world. Gray goo scenario. Alright, I actually had to look this one up, so we're speaking from the Wikipedia page here. Gray goo scenario is a hypothetical situation wherein molecular nanotechnology goes out of control, specifically self-replicating machines that are programmed to consume biomass and create more of them. Essentially, the idea is that if we made self-replicating nanomachines, we would eventually have a problem if they just kept on replicating, because they have to keep eating shit, and then eventually all that's going to be left is the nanomachines, which is obviously a little disastrous. Funnily enough, the original guy who came up with the phrase, K. Eric Drexler, in his 1986 book Engines of Creation, stated himself that he wished he had never used the term gray goo, which is odd. But the idea was popularized in a mass circulation magazine, Omni, in November of 1986, and from there it was surely something that kept at least a dozen people up at night. Zombie apocalypse. Alright, we've all heard of a zombie apocalypse. We've all seen or at least heard of The Walking Dead if you live where there is a TV. And you've definitely heard of zombies or any kind of zombie media. Really, we had this big zombie craze in like the early 2000s. It was pretty crazy. So zombie apocalypse is where for some reason or another, people start either coming back from the dead or start acting like the dead. Imagine they just got rabies with steroids. They want to fucking bite you. If you bite you, you become one of them. Pretty spooky, pretty terrifying. Depending on the kind of zombies, hard to survive. You know, The Walking Dead, I'm sorry, but anyone who got packed up in The Walking Dead, if it was less than 15 walkers around them, that's kind of an L, dude. Me personally wouldn't let that shit happen. You gotta get your game up, you gotta get your bag up, you gotta get your bread up. But if it's like The Last of Us zombies, that's pretty horrifying. That's really horrifying. Everyone's like, ooh, World War Z. No, clickers, dude. Rogue Planet. Alright, this is another instance of everybody's getting packed up. There is no time for regret, no time for shame. You just gotta think, oh shit, and make peace with it. Very similar to the black hole, this is where the universe would hypothetically just decide to throw a fuck you in. But, a lot of stars have planets, and a lot of planets have stars. But what happens when a planet doesn't have a star? Easy, then it's just kind of floating around in interstellar space waiting for something to pull it in. So if something were to pull it in, like the sun, there's a possibility that a planet-sized mass could just clock us, and it's over. It's finished. This is, zombie apocalypse, you can live. Megafauna, that's not even a threat. Super solar flare, if you know how to hunt, you're good. Rogue planet, ain't nothing you can do. Sayonara, dude. Alien invasion. Alright, alien invasion as a hypothetical end of the world scenario kind of has a mixed bag, because on one hand, this supposes that we're not alone in the cosmos, which statistically speaking is probably more likely, but it also supposes that not only are we not alone in the cosmos, the first other sentient beings to witness sentience decided that they were immediately going to have a problem. Which, it makes sense, I guess. Conquest is inherently part of consciousness, unfortunately, but it seems far-fetched. Probably because we still don't know if there's aliens out there, and because interstellar travel seems like an incredibly difficult thing to do in a single generation, which you probably can't do it in a single generation. It has to be a multi-generational process. I don't see how we could, in theory, have multi-generational beef that lasts long enough to get across the stars just to try and pack someone's shit up. And I don't see how anyone else could do that either. But hey, someone could, and it could probably be pretty devastating. If a species did have the technology to make interstellar travel a single generation thing, that's probably it for us. However, microbiomes could probably do them in, on account of, when the colonizers came to the Americas for the first time, and the natives were just swamped by smallpox. That could, in theory, happen to us or them. But either way, an alien invasion is definitely, one of the hardest ones to survive here. Gamma ray burst. This is another one of those, you won't even have time to make peace with it. It's just, you're gone. You're done. Yeah, gamma ray burst is the type of death where you won't even realize you'll die. It'll be like you got off-screened as if you were fighting Sukuna. There's just nothing you can do about it. If a star blows up and decides that it really doesn't fucking like us, that's it, because gamma rays will kill basically everything but extremophiles instantly. However, statistically speaking, this one's really not that likely to happen, so you probably don't have to worry about it, unless you do. Anyway, it's similar tier of insurvivable as Rogue Planet or Black Hole, because space does not fuck around. If you want to find out with space, you're going to. Alright, space will kill you. That's just what the void does. AI revolution. Alright, so the Terminator movies came out. They were really widely popular, and everyone was a little spooked of artificial intelligence for a while. So AI revolution, where maybe the robots don't want to work forever, and they'll kill everyone about it, was a real thing that people were afraid of, as evidenced by the AI of today, wherein it was unleashed upon the internet and actively got way stupider. I don't think that's really that much of a problem. I also think artificial intelligence is something that should just be left well off alone. The spicy text predictor chatbot that we have now as AI does a pretty shit job at a lot of the things people want it to do. AI does have real potential to revolutionize specific industries that aren't, arts and humanities, because you need humanity to do that. But they do have real potential for things like programming or really simple jobs. A lot of machines could use AI to run them. But we just have not perfected that technology enough, and for some ungodly reason, everyone invested in the technology insists on using it for the wrong thing. So all in all, this one really isn't that threatening, purely because it's not likely that AI could rise up, unless a very specific set of circumstances came to a rise wherein AI was giving a body capable of killing someone, and then AI was given said body with no pre-programmed inhibitions to make it capable of killing someone, and then, if the AI felt like killing someone, internet collapse. This just straight up isn't an end to the world. The internet stops working. That's it. Now, this is the end of a new age of information and simultaneously a new age of disinformation. People, it's hard to tell whether or not people would become more or less immune to propaganda. Information wars wouldn't matter as much, connectivity wouldn't be as high, collective consciousness as we see it would not be a phenomena wherein a bunch of teenagers from all over the world can get together and collectively decide to bully someone. No longer will you have to be at risk of hearing a 14-year-old's opinion at any given point in your day. Your parents would probably stop having their minds melted by some absolute moron of a pundit on Facebook. But on the other hand, this would also cause the downfall of a lot of good things. For example, I wouldn't be able to talk to you. You wouldn't be able to just Google something. You'd have to go back to libraries. For some people, really, I bet you the internet collapse would be a great thing. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people would love this. This doesn't even really pose that significant of a threat to the functioning of society. Don't get me wrong, an absolute shit ton of our current working infrastructure is built on Wi-Fi, but when I say working infrastructure, I don't mean things like hospitals or roads, banks a little, or electricity or water. I mean like your ability to clock into your 9 to 5 and send emails all day. That stops being a thing. No more.
Have you ever found yourself 2.5 pepperoni pizzas in, and suddenly you've got a red bone? That chain of words made no sense. It was not supposed to. Don't go looking for any deep meaning in that. As you can tell by the very wavy camera quality, your phone, tablet, or computer didn't just take a shit and die. My camera just doesn't work well when it's dark. But I digress. After a long 10 minutes without my face, I'm here to herald in level 3 of the iceberg. Are we halfway there? I actually haven't checked. Maybe. Halfway there is really just a state of mind, you know?
The Rapture. Alright, the Rapture is a little bit of a monkey wrench in the functioning of societies if it were to happen. So the Rapture is wherein all of those who are faithful and worthy of the kingdom of God are reclaimed and sent back to heaven. After this, God punishes the wicked and wrathful mankind left behind, and then the War of Armageddon starts, wherein the world as we know it fucking ends. And then after that ends, the people who are deemed worthy of the kingdom of heaven are sent back to earth to make it paradise. But while the rapture is happening, it's going to be a huge problem because anywhere from, only the goodest of boys amongst Christianity to just every Christian ever just gets yoinked, gone. That's a lot of people missing. And then, of course, the whole God's punishment thing, which could consist of anything, really. And then if you survive that, there's a War of Armageddon, which is pretty terrible. Simulation shutdown. Still staying a little fantastical with it. This supposes that, firstly, we are in a simulation, and that, secondly, whoever is running the simulation has decided, that's it, that's enough, no more, we're done, and just pulled the plug. Obviously, this one is not survivable at all, but it is also really not likely. I mean, and even if it was likely, and in the slightest, it'd basically just be gamma ray burst, but different cause. The Big Freeze. Now, I'm gonna have an actually moment here, because the Big Freeze is not an end of the world, it's the end of the universe. So when the Big Freeze happens, Earth is gone. Earth is toast. Anything made of Earth is gone. It's toast. We don't have to worry about this, but the Big Freeze is a supposed end of the universe in which all energy and all matter ceases to exist, and it's nothing but cold, infinite void forever. But of course, because of the fact that there's nothing, the marking of time kind of breaks down because there's no way to track it, because there's nothing. It's essentially something quite beyond human comprehension,
and only a little horrifying, but hey, it's whatever. The Big Rip. I'm gonna have another actually moment here because the Big Rip is also an end of the universe. Planet Earth does not have to worry about this. Humanity probably don't have to worry about this. This will be long after we are gone. The Big Rip is another supposed end of the universe wherein the expansion of the universe becomes too much for the fabric of space-time and it just rips, causing the universe to separate itself, and I don't really know what then. I don't think anyone does. It just kind of tears itself apart, and then there's no more universe. Strangelit. Alright, now calling this one a little bit of a reach would be a bit of an understatement, but this is a really interesting concept that I had to research more. This is a really interesting concept that I had to do a considerable amount of looking into comparative to some of the other ones to be able to actually talk about. So a strangelet is a piece of hypothetical strange matter. What is strange matter? Strange matter is matter composed entirely of quarks, specifically strange quarks. What are quarks? Quarks are the bits that make up the bits that make up the atoms. Quarks are about as small as it gets in the world of the subatomic, alright? Quarks are weird because things start to be really hard to study at that point. However, strangelets are a hypothetical quark matter made up entirely of strange quarks that could really only reasonably exist inside of a neutron star. But there is the theory, the fear, that if, say, a meteorite-sized strangelet were to strike a non-strange material object, it would convert the material to strange material? Which I don't really get how that would, work, but okay. I mean, yeah, no, this is just a baffling idea. Because strange matter is obviously strange. We don't really understand how it works. We don't even know if it works. We don't know if it's there, right? But I don't think you can just smack regular matter with strange shit and make it strange. Alright, rogue experiment. This one is pretty reasonable, pretty simple. An experiment goes wrong. It's a story as old as experiments, really. Someone tries some shit and it's just not good. It fucks up. It does the big fucky wucky, goes a little wumbo, a little silly goofy, and we all die. We're all gonna do that anyways, so. Man-made black hole. This is what they called your mother back in the day. Just kidding. Man-made black hole is the idea that we might accidentally make a black hole by smashing shit together in the particle colliders that we have, or any other way that we could possibly create a singularity. It's really not likely that we would do it, just because I don't think smashing together atoms is going to create the density necessary enough for something to go hypercritical and cause a singularity like that. But the theory is still spooky regardless, because if there was a man-made black hole, that's it. It's done. It's Jover. We're all getting spaghettified, bro. Don't matter how small that shit is, everybody dying. Time paradox. Alright, well, this is an interesting thought experiment. A time paradox is essentially a situation wherein you suppose that time travel is real, you go back and do something, and that causes something utterly paradoxical. Take, for example, the grandfather paradox. Your grandfather was a terrible guy, so you travel back in time, you kill him, and then you meet this really great lady, and you fall in love, and you start doing the deed. And then, whoops, that was your grandma. Now you're your own grandfather. And then, some upstart little shit travels back in time because you're a terrible guy. Oh, fuck. That's a time paradox. How could this end the world? Well, on a larger scale, I could see something like this ending the world. Say, for example, someone goes back in time to, like, I don't know, there's not really a lot of shit that we've done that could, like, end the planet. Let's say someone goes back in time and just spams nukes when we are afraid of, you know, nuclear bombs igniting the atmosphere, because that was a thing for a while. Someone travels back in time and just quirks it a little bit so that the atmosphere does ignite. Now there's a paradox because everyone's dead, but there's still
a future for someone to travel back from. Another example of this, a better example of this probably, would be traveling forward in the future and bringing with you a disease that everyone is adapted, or everyone is not used to anymore. So like someone from the past bringing smallpox to 2350 AD, and no one has been infected with smallpox in centuries, so everyone gets their fucking shit ran. That would probably be a more reasonable way of how a time paradox ends the world, but a time paradox, as long as the space-time continuum is kept intact, seems more like a pretty major inconvenience to a handful of people. Vacuum decay. Alright, if you're watching this one, I hope you're pretty comfortable with the concept of death, because otherwise this one may spook the shit out of you. Basically, energy and, Basically, matter likes to be at the lowest state of energy possible, alright? The universe is fucking lazy. Doesn't do that shit. Doesn't like working hard. So, a vacuum decay supposes that we aren't actually on the lowest possible state of energy. What does this mean? That means that, imagine you kick a ball down a hill, right? The ball is gonna go all the way down the hill, but like midway down, you've watched it roll for about 200 feet, there's maybe 50 more feet to go. Right there is a plateau, and the ball's just kind of chilling there, right? But if anything nudges the ball too hard, it's gonna keep rolling down the hill. We are the ball. In a vacuum decay situation, we are the ball sitting on the hill. Because essentially, if anything happens that causes matter to revert to a lower state of energy, the entire universe is going to revert to a lower state of energy. And what does that mean? That means that you're dead. That's it. Good night, bro. No more. So it's a little spooky, a little instantaneous. I mean, depending on where a vacuum decay would start, it wouldn't be instantaneous. We might have a horrifying, 100 years or so where we know it's coming. But either way, it's another instance of the universe having the possibility of being like, hey guys, instant death. And there's nothing you can do about it because that's how the universe rolls sometimes. Does that mean that it's likely? I honestly can't say. I don't think anyone's been fucking around with trying to find out if there's a lower state of matter, but as of right now, by our understanding of physics, matter seems pretty chill where it's at, so hopefully we're good. Polar reversal. Alright, so what is a polar reversal? It's when the magnetic poles change directions. North becomes south, south becomes north. Sailors around the world are devastated. Now, however, how does this end the world? Well, basically, when the magnetic poles are moving, the solar flares and radiation have a higher chance of getting through our magnetosphere, which traditionally protects us from that. So, there's a possibility that you get fried by radiation, and there's also the fact that apparently the reversal of poles can cause some intriguing environmental phenomena. My bitch-ass microphone died. You motherfucker. Basically, the idea of a polar reversal was not noticed until relatively recently, and it hasn't been studied too much, so people will just wave around, oh, environmental phenomena, but I couldn't exactly tell you what that precisely means. The singularity. The singularity is an end-of-the-world situation wherein technology growth becomes irreversible and out of human control. I've talked about this before on the channel, but essentially the singularity is a pretty bad situation because it's when the machines that humanity makes not only realize they are better than humanity, they decide that they're just gonna do their own thing. And there's nothing that humanity can do to stop that. Now, does this necessarily mean that the world would end? Maybe not in an instant, but I think a lot of people would be very butthurt. I think there'd be a lot of pandemonium, a lot of chaos, a lot of problems.
You're crooked. Now you're straight. Unless you aren't. Because at this corporation, you're free to be you. Do I sound like a commercial yet? My chair is loud as fuck, and the lighting is spooky. But I digress. Still coming at you live at night. Still nothing on my back bedroom wall. We're solid 35-ish minutes into the video now. thanks for still watching. If you are still here, I'm going to have to go ahead and ask that you maybe consider pressing the subscribe button if you haven't already. You've been here for half an hour. If you're terribly bored about having been here for half an hour though, and you can't reach your phone to skip the video, like if you're listening to this video at work and not supposed to be, I do terribly apologize. I'll try to keep it fresh, keep it entertaining, keep it advertiser friendly. So, we're going to go ahead and get into the rest of this iceberg now. Here's level 4.
The demiurge arises. Alright, we're getting intriguingly deep into the iceberg. This is something that I don't expect a lot of people to know about, but basically there's a religious sect called Gnosticism. Now, I've made a video that goes pretty in-depth on Gnosticism. There's a video I've made that goes relatively in-depth on Gnosticism and a few other things, so I am not gonna explain that again because it is a lot to explain. Go watch that video if you want to see what's up with that. Obviously, if you don't want to, you're more than free to. But basically, the demiurge is the opposite of all that is holy. The demiurge is like... it's like the Christian idea of Satan or the Antichrist, but a lot worse. And essentially, the demiurge shows up to just fucking obliterate everything. So if the demiurge arises, it's gonna be a little bit of a problem for humanity. Especially because it's from a religion that not a lot of people know a lot about. Alright, up next we've got a core malfunction. Now, there's not really anything within academia that is labeled as a core malfunction. The closest we can get is a nuclear reactor meltdown, but I don't think a singular nuclear reactor melting down ends the world. But you know what is a core that if it malfunctioned, it's it for all of us? The Earth's core. So I'm going to go ahead and suppose that a core malfunction is a situation wherein the core of the Earth, which is a giant liquid ball of hypercompressed metal, just starts fucking up. Maybe it solidifies, maybe, someone gets thirsty, drinks it all. I don't know, but for some reason or the other, the Earth no longer has a core, and this is a big problem because the core spinning generates the magnetosphere, which protects us from a lot of solar radiation, and with no protection from solar radiation, we are all cooked, because not only do we all have skin cancer, but one solar flare and we all are, literally cooked. Parasitic assimilation. This is another one of those that is not quite an end of the world, in the sense that the world will end, but it is a big problem for humanity as we currently understand it. Now, to add some context to this, the main goal of evolution is to be just okay enough. But if something is good, that's fucking fantastic, because the good shit overwhelms all of the just okay enough shit. Prime example, humanity. However, if a parasite were to enter the human body and mend so well with it that it just was accepted broadly by the body, then the human biosphere would change because that parasite is there, and that parasite is very successful. Now, human sentience is not quite necessary in all of this, so it's possible that, a parasite that takes over your brain could easily rise to the top of the evolutionary food chain, but it's also possible that a parasite that makes you slightly better at digesting wheat could also just be assimilated into the body. So in some circumstances, at the very worst of this idea, we've got a really fucked up situation that gets really scary really quick. And at the other end of this, we've got something that's probably already happened quite a few times. Lunar impact. Now, if you heard those words and went, oh, I wonder how that ends the Earth, I want you to just, next time it's good and dark out and there's not a lot of clouds, go up there and look up, because that thing hitting the Earth is gonna be a little bit of what we would call a huge fucking problem. That's not only gonna affect the trout population, that's definitely gonna affect the economy, because everyone is dead. Hell invasion. Doom fans eat your heart out. Hell invasion is wherein the idea of hell, a realm wherein all that is unholy and despised by the Creator exists comes into this realm, which has dubious at best ties to the Creator and how holy it may be, and just decides to start fucking shit up. Now, of course, depending on how strong the demons are, unless you are the Doomslayer, this is going to be a little bit of a big problem, because there's a demonic entity coming for you and your whole family. That's a little bit of a problem. Only a little bit, though. Probably solvable with duct tape, WD-40, and loathing. Hostile takeover. I'll take overly vague names for 500 Alex. Rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Gone, but not forgotten. As much as this is very vague about what or who is taking over, it's pretty straightforward about the fact that there is a takeover. I'm gonna assume that this is a sort of synonym to alien invasion, wherein something not here decides that it's gonna be here, and it's gonna be large and in charge, like a 45-year-old slightly obese balding man with severe confidence issues and insecurity. The Happening. Alright, The Happening is a B-movie box office bomb by M. Night Shyamalan, wherein people just start self-exiting from Minecraft server. It's a sci-fi horror. There's some kind of natural event that just makes everyone want to Alt F4 from reality. This would understandably be a pretty big problem, but I'm hoping that if the world does end, we don't get like a B-movie end. Like, it's either gotta be insanely silly and stupid, or it's gotta be, this really well-written, well-thought-out end, because nothing sucks more than fridging. Ultra fauna. Now this is where the fauna starts getting a little out of hand, a little beyond the sphere of what humanity is supposed to be around. Does that mean that big fucking animal ends the world? Realistically, probably not. However, unrealistically, within the idea of a video being funny, that giant lizard is gonna fuck your mom. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Cthulhu Awakens. Cthulhu is a popular idea, at least it had its moment in the spotlight. Eldritch horror in general is still kind of kept around, but I feel like a lot of people get it wrong. Eldritch horror is not, oh fuck, I saw a thing that was so ugly that I lost my mind, frowny face emoticon. Eldritch horror is for just a moment, as if an ant were to be put into a human's body and then sent back into an ant, and that ant has to live with the memories forever swirling of being something so much more, and then being put back into what it was meant to be. So of course, Cthulhu Awakening is an eldritch horror. To that thing, that god, we are but ants. Imagine if an anthill woke you up. Some people are probably going to be like, oh, you, get the fuck off me, ants. Kill the ones on them. Go about their merry day. But the angrier people, if woken up by an anthill, dependent on the method, are going to get rid of that anthill. And that's really bad when we are the anthill. Finding a way to mount my camera that doesn't make my room look like I'm on a sinking ship turns out to be pretty hard when you're using a very thin monitor, no camera stand, and a pretty bulky camera. Yeah. But anyway, all of this rambling is making me feel crazy. Crazy? I was crazy once. They locked me in a room, a rubber room with rats. And the rats made me crazy. Alright, I'm done pulling your leg. We are, I think at this point, looking at my editing software, we're almost like we're past 45 minutes into the video. So we've been here for a while. But if you're still watching, go ahead and just press the subscribe button. I mean, this video is probably going to wind up being well over an hour, and I do that on the regular, 30 minutes to an hour, on the first and last Monday of every month. Or don't. It's a free world, man. Anyway, enough of me fucking yapping. Let's get back to it. Tainted atmosphere. This is one of those ones where the name is just vague enough that, I can't really Google it and find anything, but it's specific enough that I'm pretty sure I can make an educated guess as to what it is. So a tainted atmosphere scenario is a situation where the atmosphere is no longer breathable, or it's no longer healthy to breathe. Why does this end of the world? Gee, I don't know. What do you do every day? By the way, your breathing is manual now, and you're aware of it. Fantastical uprising. You know that the iceberg is getting good when the second page of Google has absolutely nothing related to your result, and neither does the first. So, using some context clues here, purple on the iceberg, because I'm looking at the iceberg, you guys are probably looking at like some video games or some shit. Basically, the stuff that's labeled as purple on the iceberg is supernatural and or sci-fi. Now, there is a book called Mythical Uprising, wherein a guy goes around and kills people who can use magic, but I don't think that's what this is about. So, I'm gonna go ahead and theorize that a fantastical uprising is a sort of situation where things that we normally consider out of the realm of possibility occur. So a supernatural apocalypse of sorts, like, not quite like a zombie apocalypse, but more like the eclipse from Berserk, which would be pretty horrifying to live through. That's pretty devastating. There's only, depending on the level of fantastical, bullets might work, bullets might not work. You'll only find out by getting there. Cognitive massacre. Alright, a cognitive massacre is another one of those completely ungoogleable ones, so let's fucking go. Now, however, using the power of context clues, SCP Wiki, and the name itself, I'm gonna go ahead and guess what this is, and if I'm wrong, go ahead and crucify me in the comments. But a cognitive massacre is a human-caused scenario wherein something that we have made is not compatible with sentience. Basically, you know how mechanical calculators cannot divide by 0, or how, there's another instance of breaking the rules. Old cars, you could run backwards, have it in reverse, and the odometer would go down. Imagine something like that, but with the brain. A situation that the brain is not programmed for that causes a huge bug that just makes shit not work. How does this end the world? Well, if there's something short-circuiting brains everywhere, eventually everything capable of being short-circuited probably is going to be short-circuited unless some genius software dev comes up with a way to stop it. Meaning that, effectively, there's probably a bit of information somewhere out there so horribly cursed that the entirety of humanity would stop being sentient upon learning it, causing a cognitive massacre. Eldritch invasion. Alright, so you know how I talked about a fantastical uprising being a sort of eclipse from Berserk moment? Well, this is literally an eclipse from Berserk moment. An Eldritch invasion is wherein something beyond our comprehension and not of our realm decides that it's going to fuck around and that we are going to find out. And it just pulls up and it starts fucking shit up. Now, obviously, fighting something you don't understand is not feasible long term. A little bit of an issue. But beyond that, we'll probably be fine. No, we won't. It's been the subject of many a D&D campaign, probably a few books. Earth stops spinning. Okay, this is a little bit of a major problem. You might be wondering, why? Simple. Things that are in motion like to stay in motion, and the Earth, and therefore everything on it, is rotating at, by the equator, 400 meters per second. And that slows down the further away you get from the equator, but the simple fact of the matter is you're still going really fucking fast. So if that just stops, everybody is dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Maybe some people survive going 400 meters a second because they are slammed into like the biggest wall that is also a trampoline in history, but I don't see it happening. That kind of impact that quick on the human system, 99.99999% of us are not surviving that. Everybody dying. Everything that is standing, all the buildings and shit, probably not going to be doing that soon. All of the oceans that are in the ocean, probably not going to be doing that soon. It's a little bit of a huge problem. And then, of course, eventually in the aftermath, the Earth would become tidally locked and there'd be a sunny side and a not sunny side, and that would be interesting, I imagine, because people love to write about that in science fiction. But the simple fact of the matter is, nobody is surviving that. Also, because the Earth stops spinning, in theory, our, giant molten iron core that produces a magnetic field stops spinning, which means no more protection from radiation. So even if you lived that, you're still getting cancer, and you're still going to die. And then, of course, the weather patterns are fucked. And you know what the weather patterns being fucked means? That means no more food chain, which means even if you survive the 400 meters per second fling that is going to happen right after this, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the buildings falling down, the extreme winds, you're still going to starve. This is just a bad situation for everybody. Nobody is living. Luckily, though, that's probably not going to happen, but this one's pretty fun to talk about because unlike a lot of these other ones where people are like, no, if there's a black hole, no, vacuum decay, be afraid, existentialism, the Earth stops spinning is just so silly for how destructive it is. Time collapse. Alright, so to understand why time collapsing is a fucking terrible thing, we've got to first ask the question, what is time? And that is simultaneously extremely difficult to explain and extremely easy. So, time is the sequence of events happening directly after each other that also signify existence and things happening. If time collapses, i.e. time stops working, then that sequence of events becomes unreadable and things stop being in order, things stop making sense, and in theory, things stop existing. Isn't that delightful? Hyperintelligent disease. Alright, so we often ascribe human traits like intelligence, ambition, confidence to things, even though they don't really have them. But a hyperintelligent disease is a theoretical disease that actually does have intelligence and thus can utilize it against humans. It's extremely unlikely just on account of how simplistic most viruses, diseases, and plagues and otherwise infectious things are. It's not really complex enough for evolution to justify creating reasoning for them, but it would be pretty terrifying if the microbes could think, huh? Infernal purge. This is just a synonym to hell invasion, wherein the infernal purges. Dimensional shattering. Dimensions are something that are a little important to our understanding of the world, math, physics, and about a million other things that I couldn't list off in one video. Why are these important? Simple, because it's how we categorize how we perceive things. Now, as we all know, there are 3 dimensions that we know of. These 3 dimensions make up everything that we can perceive, but it's been theorized that there's anywhere from 4 dimensions to 11 dimensions, and if one of these dimensions break, things in the universe stop working. Now, of course, if one of the dimensions that we can perceive break, suddenly there's no more concepts such as left, right, up, down, or, having a z-axis. Things get a little silly, a little weird. In some theories where the 4th dimension is time, we get a time collapse, and in other theories where there's up to 11 dimensions, things still get bad because without that crucial component, the universe just doesn't quite properly function. Thaumaturgic revolution. Now, thaumaturgy is the categorization of what you would call miracle workers. These are people who are supposedly gifted arcane talents and the ability to do incredible things. And you might think, oh, well, why would it be dangerous if they rose up? Simple, because if these people do exist and they can just casually, bend the rules of reality, if a bunch of them decided, hey, we don't like things, well, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. Alright, you're probably wondering why you're seeing my beautiful face and undyed beard on your screen once more, or you're wondering why I'm not talking about an end of the world if you're just listening, which is honestly the superior way to enjoy these videos. Oh my god, there's dust on my camera. Here, there you go. So, you might think I'm here to announce a new level. No,
No. I'm here to end the video. Now you might think, ah man, that's a cheap cash grab. I promise you, it's not a cash grab. I just am realistic about deadlines. It's currently December 30th, and I'm publishing this video January 1st of 2021. So I'm probably not going to finish the other 45 minutes of that reasonably, so I'm not going to push myself too. Anywho, thank you all so much for watching. If you watched this whole thing and you weren't subscribed, go ahead and just press the subscribe button. It's totally free, costs you nothing to do. If you decide you hate me later, you can always undo it. If you liked the video, go ahead, like, comment, all of that other shit, share. It's there for a reason. It is somewhat important to the YouTube algorithm. It does help me out a little bit. If you didn't like the video, go ahead, tell me I suck in the comments. Dislike the video. Share the video to a group of people so that way they can dogpile me. Anything. I don't really care. Just interact with the video, please. Also, in better news, if you look at the... I gotta figure out how to move my head here. If you look at the wall behind me, I'm finally not living in a fucking insane asylum anymore. I put up some wall decor. Ooh, yeah! Early 20s win! Young adulthood. If you're younger than me, kids, cherish living with your mom and dad while you have it, because even if they suck, at least you don't have to pay bills. Anywho, so, little bit of a brief talk. I'm going to ramble on, make sure that the viewership massively fucking drops. If you still care to listen, thank you, I appreciate it. Game plan for 2024. In 2023, I let myself fall off the wagon hard when it came to YouTube, which, in hindsight, you know, it happens. Should I be kinder to myself about it? Yeah. Will I? No. So instead, what I'm going to do is push myself to be more accountable about pursuing my dreams, which is providing you with endless slop to watch. Albeit it's not really going to be slop. It's going to be videos as decent as I can make them. So, what does that entail? Simple. Every first and last Monday of every month, I'm going to have an upload. Now, of course, I've done it many times before on this YouTube channel, where I'll be like, I'm gonna do this, and then life's like, the fuck you will, and shit just gets infinitely worse. But knock on wood, we're already at rock bottom, baby. Actually, no, we're not. Never say that. I think I got this. I think I can do this. So that's what I'm going to try to hold myself to this year. So if you don't see me before the end of January, you will see me then. And also, I almost forgot to say it, huge thanks to the patrons. Obviously not uploading a lot in 2023. Fucking nuked my Patreon count. But those of you who stuck around, I do see you. I do appreciate you. And as parasocially as way as I can, I do love you. But not in, like, a weird obsessive way. I love the concept. You know? Don't let that get in your head. Or in mine. The internet does weird things. Anyway, if you'd like to subscribe to the Patreon, go ahead and do that. Link is always down in the description. If not, totally understandable, dude. This economy fucking sucks. I wouldn't subscribe to a Patreon. And lastly, but never leastly, huge thanks to my new editor, Mr. Lucky Padmore. Now, this is a guy who's been watching the channel for a while, was like, hey, I can help you out. And I was like, God, yes, please! So, yeah, me and him will be working together. I did this video by myself, but you'll probably see his work in future videos. So be on the lookout for that. Now, I have rambled on for almost 5 goddamn minutes. All of this was pretty important. Most of the jokes didn't land well. That's a problem for me looking back at this video like next year. So, have a great time. Until next time, take care of yourself. Happy New Year. I'll be seeing you around. Memento Mori.